It's fine.
I'm freezing.
Yeah.
Oh, you have to get out of here. You have to get out of here at some point, right?
Yep.
And you let your financial people know?
Yeah, there's no option. Language. On the other way, it's recorded.
Yeah, I'll remove it when I.
The only one that's clear is great.
Oh, great. Good for good. Is it still warming up? It just looks really dark.
It's coming too. Let me see what this is. Okay. Oh, hold on. No. Hold on. Okay, good.
Hi, everybody. Again, my name is Selena. I am president of the Austin EMS Association. This is our proposal on Article 6, wages and benefits. And we really wanted to set it up just by making sure that everybody understands what has changed in the last contract and what changes we anticipate in the future and where we are right now. So for the city and for us, one of the things that we really need to make sure is that we have the staff available in our department to do the job that we're supposed to do. And wages and benefits is one of the largest areas where we can make positive changes to make sure that that is true. One of the concerns that we have and the department should have is that we are getting fewer and fewer applicants and fewer cadets. These are the stats that we have in the last 3 years, and you can see that our cadet pool is going down and the number of cadets in our classes is shrinking. And in fact, in this December class, we will have 15 people sitting in it. They start today. The class could have allocated 30 people. We needed at least 30 people, and we can only get 15 qualified people to come work for us. I guarantee you the next class will similarly not be full. When we look at our public safety counterparts, we know that police always starts out with 100 cadets in each of their classes. And we know that the fire department has hundreds of people on their waiting list that are qualified to be in their department. Another concern that we should have, our separations are increasing. And if you were to break this down by separations before retirement and separations after retirement eligibility, our retirement eligibility has really shot up. So in the life of this contract in the year before, we've never had separations as great as we have at this minute. And I've had to revise this presentation several times in the last week because we hear of more and more separations daily. When you combine the two together, you see that in the last 3 years, our hiring has really, really been outpaced by our separations. Furthermore, you'll see an explosion of vacancies. In December of 2018, we started with about 43 vacancies, and that number has only started to increase to now above 120 vacancies, so it's almost tripled. We are paramedics. We are not technologically inclined people, and so this is the best that we could do. But you'll see this graph that shows the blue line is our number of employed FTEs. The green line is our number of FTEs total, and that top green line is our population. So if we project out, you'll see the red slashes, that's our vacancies that continue to grow and aren't even matching, even the total number of FTEs that we want for this department is not even matching the growth of the city. I think in order to have this conversation, we also need to look at the drivers as to why these things are happening. Why are more people separated this year? And why are fewer and fewer people wanting to work for ATC EMS? After many conversations with the board, with the bargaining team, with our medics, it seems clear that there are two major reasons. And I should have mentioned that the question from this slide is, will this trend continue? And according to our workforce survey, we believe it will. We have at least 8% of the medics filling out this survey saying that they're gonna leave under a year. So that's another 10%. Within 3 years, we have 20%. So the reasons why we think that this will happen, I have very, very simplified the reasons, and it's gonna be these three. Silicon Hills, the pandemic, and the ice storm. I don't know if y'all have heard the term Silicon Hills, but I think it describes it well, but it's basically the fact that the Silicon Valley has basically relocated to Austin in the past few years. So we have many people from California moving here because the relative cost of living is so drastically lower and relocating a lot of their industries to the hill country. So that's where you get Silicon Hills. Some very obvious examples that just permeate the air that we breathe. We know that Tesla has moved its permanent headquarters to Austin. Samsung has announced a semiconductor, multi-billion-dollar semiconductor in Taylor, Texas. The Austin Chamber Senior Vice President, just talking about this company called Wise, said, Wise is a welcome addition to our growing fintech community, capitalizing on our diverse talent base. The Austin region is a magnet for international company, and Wise's technology is paving the way with new options for companies and individuals. So this is one of the reasons why Austin is increasingly becoming inaffordable. I don't really have time in this presentation to talk about land development code, but this is one area that I will focus on right here. So we know that housing costs have increased year over year exponentially. 4%, 5.5%, 13%, 25%, while our COLAs have been about at 2%. And today, the typical home value is $536,000. So if you look at the incomes in Austin right now, 80% of the median family income is defined as low income. So we're looking at this bracket between 60% and 80%. So 60% to 80% of what the median family makes. Our medics are defined as low income up to 7 years in this department. And if they are a parent, they will not leave low income until 11 years. And if they have 2 children, they will not leave low income status until they have 17 years in this department. I think we all agree that we want our medics to be able to afford to live in Austin and the immediately surrounding communities. But we see that that is not actually happening. On the left, you have a heat map of where our medics live, and you'll see that it grows darker red outside of Austin, about an hour to an hour and a half out. And in the documents that the department has provided, we know that around 30% of our medics live in Austin and the rest do not. We are required to be able to be at any EMS station within 2 hours. If we're on call, they'll call us and say, hey, I need you to be at medic 22, I need you to be at medic 20. We have 2 hours to get there. We are increasingly almost not able to even meet that request. Our starting medics make less than $50,000, $45,000, but if you look at this bracket, they would not even be able to get a loan for up to $200,000 or above. And if you look at the median house in Austin, and then you go out to hours around Austin, we could not be able to afford that. In Austin, absolutely not. We'd have to be making at least double the income. Travis County, double. Williamson County, double. Hayes County, double. We still cannot afford to live in Bastrop County, and we cannot afford to live in Caldwell County. We're gonna go around the room right here, and we're gonna tell y'all where we live. Lindsay, Pflugerville.
I live in Austin, but I'm renting rooms.
East Bastrop County.
I live in Austin.
Leander.
College Station.
Leander.
Hello.
And the 2 medics that are not present, 3 medics that are not present on the bargaining team, one lives in Williamson County, the other lives in Killeen, and the third lives in New Braunfels. So that just shows you, even in our small group, the truth that medics do not cannot afford to live in Austin and the surrounding areas. Because of the pressure of our housing and labor, we're starting to see labor prices rise as well. In McDonald's, it starts at $21 an hour, and you'll see our base is $19.37. Walmart posted that they're increasing their hourly pay $18 to $25 an hour. Cap Metro just won a historic contract, and their bus drivers are making $22 an hour, and their mechanics are making $31 an hour. So moving on, the next thing I wanted to discuss is the pandemic. The pandemic has completely changed 100% upside down, turned it around the way that we operate in Austin. Every single call that we go on, we have to wear an N95. We have had to wear PPE like this, going up 5 flights of stairs, carrying around hundreds of pounds of equipment, up and down stairs in 110-degree heat in Austin. Not only that, but we have run the risk of bringing COVID-19 home to our families. I know medics who have had long COVID from calls on shift and who have had really bad effects from the vaccine that they would not have taken except for working here. So much so you even see that 96% of our medics are vaccinated, which I think is probably the highest in the country. Here's just a typical headline that you'll see. I think it just epitomizes the crisis in EMS because of the pandemic. EMS in crisis, high stress, low pay, burnout among medics leave New Orleans EMS critically shorthanded. You see, we have our own headlines. Austin EMS medics are overworked and overloaded during COVID-19. It's taking a huge mental toll. We can drive down further and look at what specifically are the effects from the pandemic. In our survey, what we found is almost 80% of our medics say that the pandemic has increased or has impacted their mental health. 80% of the medics have said that it has decreased morale at work. It's affected personal relationships, physical health, increased expenses. It's made people not want to work here, and it's made people want to leave EMS, period. We also know that the pandemic has had historic implications on labor and healthcare specifically. Because of the nursing shortage, all industries are looking at paramedics and EMTs to help them do basic things. So at Amazon, if you want to be an EMT basic on the factory floor, they'll pay you $23 an hour, give you a $7,000 sign-on bonus the first year, a $6,000 sign-on bonus the second year, and stop. And this is in Austin. If you just do a search on Indeed, you'll see easily that they're paying paramedics $40 an hour to do events, to work at clinics, to work in hospitals. Very easy to find. In fact, you can work for the city of Austin as an EMT basic and make $25 an hour. So you can get a check from the city of Austin to be an EMT basic for $25 an hour. EMS across the state, we'll see that this is not something that Austin is dealing with by itself. Hamilton EMS just announced a 14% across the board salary increase. Windsor EMS is offering a $10,000 EMT sign-on bonus and a $25,000 paramedic sign-on bonus. That's well more than 50% of your starting salary at ATC EMS. If you want to work in private in Austin, you are paid a lot more right now. Their paramedics start at $23 an hour, EMTs $19, $23 an hour with $7,500 and $5,000 sign-on bonuses. This is in Austin. So the last area that has really had a historic impact is the ice storm. And I know that we did have a historic ice storm, but I also really am talking about climate change here. I'm talking about wildfires. But this is the most deleterious event that we had in recent history. So I do want to focus on this as an example. I presented to the Public Safety Committee an after action report that the association created to look at the experiences of our medics during the ice storm. Here were some of the things that they found, some of the austere conditions. We could not access patients in ambulances. Our ambulances could not go up some of the hills in this town. We were treating many people that are highly medically vulnerable, and they were reliant on different services like dialysis, methadone clinics. Many were on oxygen, CPAP, and when the power went out, they relied on us to help them. Some hospitals were closed, they had diversions, we had increased fleet accidents, we lost power to critical infrastructures. That includes many of our stations where we couldn't charge our life-saving batteries for our defibrillators, and many of our stations lost power, and we were using kitty litter in the toilets. I have some quotes that really take me back, and this is a content warning to all our medics because it does get extremely graphic. The department telling people to keep trying when they are stuck or sliding on ice is not acceptable or appropriate or safe. If medics are stuck or can't get to work, don't push them into dangerous situations they are not equipped to deal with that result in long-term damage such as the loss of a vehicle or bodily harm. We have a medic who is still off work after getting in an accident on the way to work with head injury. It was dangerous driving while at work. I sincerely considered letting the truck spin off or even tip into a shallow ditch because the risk of a deadly collision was getting too real. We were so close to sliding off roadways and even over guardrails on overpasses, most of which would have ended in our death. We often had very little control over our ambulances. I had a conversation in my head about what my last words would be over the radio. We had no breaks or food. I sat at my console. I was on the radio 3 of the days, taking 1 break a day to go to the restroom, feeling guilty the whole time because I knew how much of a strain it put on my coworkers to have someone out of the room even for a few minutes. I worked 29 plus hours on a shift. We were sent literally all over the city from far north to far south, back to back. No food, water, relief, etc. Was told we couldn't use hospital bathrooms, yet our station bathrooms were also unusable due to no water. We literally had no relief. We were exhausted, run ragged, with no nutrition or basic needs to be met. I'm female, I peed in the back of the truck into a vomit bag because it already took 4 hours just to stop the truck and not knowing when I'd see a bathroom. I also had abdominal cramps and opted to swallow the Tylenol dry because I didn't want to consume water. We are only a 4-digit number to the department and city, being expected to run over 30 calls with no breaks and no response from the department. There needs to be more frequent communication from executive to the department about changes and expectations. This event should have had several per day, not one per day, starting a few days in. So I think the question is, were these just historic events and historic conditions that cause hundreds of people to move here daily, that caused this historic pandemic, and that caused this ice storm? And I would argue that it's not, and I think that we all know this. Austin's Land Development Code is stuck in court last month, and they're in court, I think, in the last few days as well. The New York Times has made headlines on how Austin became one of the least affordable cities in America. And they even asked, will real estate ever be normal again? So I really don't think this affordability issue will change anytime soon for our medics. For the pandemic, I can't even say the new wave that is coming, Omicron. It's pronounced differently in Europe, I know, but I anticipate that we'll go through all of the Greek letters before COVID-19 is over. And we know that this is just the the effect of increased globalization, that we will continue to see more and more pandemics. And finally, what about the weather? Well, we do expect the Farmer's Almanac expects that it will be very, very cold in Texas. And we're not prepared. Texas is not prepared. ERCOT has not appropriately weatherized, and many power companies say that the state's gas system is not ready for another deep freeze. So I have credible concerns that we are looking at the same type of event. And if not that, we know that global warming is real and happening on average. So a new scorecard from the UN has found that the country's 2030 climate targets are still far off track. So we know that this is also going to continue to be an issue. I think when we think about these things, one thing we really need to talk about is, what is the obligation that we have to the citizens of Austin? And what kind of EMS system do we want for the city? And I really think we want to do better than just to staff our ambulances. And in fact, we're called to because of all of these crises that we see. This is the EMS system that we want, that we've started, but we currently don't have the staff to do. Our paramedics started a COVID hotline. So at the beginning of the pandemic, they had the most latest up-to-date research, and people could call and say, I think I have COVID, these are my symptoms. And our paramedics could tell them, you might have COVID at this time, you are not symptomatic enough to need to go to the hospital, you can stay at home. We kept people at home to keep them out of the hospital in case they had COVID, exposed it to other people, or didn't have COVID and exposed themselves to COVID. This is the type of system that we should be building towards. We have had one of the first community health programs in this country. And during the pandemic at the beginning, we were told through our community health paramedic networks that the homeless downtown were very scared because they didn't know what was happening. They didn't have access to information. All of a sudden, the country shut down. Nobody was passing out money. There was no food. People were eating in trash cans. And we heard that there was going to be looting and rioting through our community health paramedics. And I was able to reach out to Council and Adler, and they were able to set up food streams to help feed people. If y'all remember Caritas, the Arch, everything shut down. During the ice storm, one of our paramedics was called out to a nursing home. And that nursing home said, we're gonna need all 150 residents moved to the hospital because our power is out and our residents are cold. Well, this paramedic knew that that is not possible, that our ERs do not have the capacity during the ice storm, nor did our system have that capacity. So he found a fireplace in one of the large common rooms, And with the assistance of firefighters, moved all 150 residents into that break room so that they had access to heat. That type of outside thinking during historic concerns is what we need for an EMS system. I think in order to get the EMS system that Austin deserves and that we need to first look at wage and benefits. And so that's the proposal that we're bringing to y'all today. And Craig is going to present that proposal. I also wanted to just end with this one. This tweet was sent out a few days ago by the U.S. Surgeon General. And I just want y'all to remember that this is why we're doing this today. And I'll just leave it up and Craig can present unless you want to share your screen.
We just forwarded to you, and you should have an email with our Article 6 proposal. We're asking for a substantial wage increase. Starting wages later this year, or I guess in early next year, are going to go from the current 1937 to, I believe, 1956. It reflects per hour. That's entry-level pay. And that reflects a 1% increase in wages. So over the past 4 years, wages in EMS have increased 7%. And as a result, starting pay for an EMS, paramedic, medic, EMT, whatever, is still below $20 an hour. As you just saw, there are many places where you can work under much less austere conditions. You can do transports in Austin, and you're earning substantially more than an Austin paramedic does. As you know from your EMS Agenda 2050, you're asking paramedics in the Austin EMS to do a ton more in terms of the type of work that they do than they've been asked to do in the past. It is a staggeringly difficult job. The things that Selena has pointed out about things like the additional burdens that the pandemic, that storms like the ice storm that are unpredictable, all of these things, hit an Austin EMS worker at the same time that you can go to Amazon and work on the floor of that shop and never have to go out in an ice storm, never have to go out in a pandemic, just have to get to work and earn $4 an hour more than an Austin entry-level Austin paramedic is earning right now. What we're asking Austin to consider doing is to immediately raise starting pay for Austin paramedics to $27 an hour. That is a substantial increase, and we're aware of that. However, that is not an unrealistic increase. If you're going to want to be able to recruit paramedics to work in Austin EMS, you're going to have to make a major jump in what you're willing to pay them. And the proof is right before you. The graphs that Selena has just shown you indicate that our total numbers are actually going down at the same time that Austin's population is going up, that your actual census of authorized physician is going up, and you can't even maintain your levels at current levels, much less increase to meet the rising population, to meet all of these demands, additional demands that are being placed. Austin population, I'm just talking about the city now, is growing by over 180 persons per day. You're going to have just increased demand. You're going to have a tremendous increase in the types and numbers of responsibilities that you're going to be asking your paramedics to work. And for all those reasons, we think that unless you take this wage proposal very seriously and try to meet it, you're not going to be able to do the things that you need and want to do with Austin EMS. We've got a situation, I keep going back to the same number, 661 authorized strength, 530 current census of people that you have, and they can no longer meet the needs. You're going to have to increase your workforce. And of course, if you say, well, there's other ways to skin this cat besides simply raising pay, we're open to solutions. The goal, I think that both sides have a shared goal, and that is that an Austin EMS worker should be able to make a living wage and live in the city of Austin What we just presented to you is that a person without dependents doesn't hit 80%, is in fact a low-wage worker, doesn't hit 80% of that median income until 7 years. If you have one dependent, that jumps to 11. If you have two dependents, that jumps to 17. 17 years on the force before you get out of the low-wage category. That simply isn't compatible with doing the types of things or expecting the types of things that you expect from Austin EMS workers. These are incredibly dedicated people that you have working for you. And I don't think I'm telling you something you don't know. You do know that. And to be able to keep them, to be able to attract more people like them, you're simply going to have to make a very substantial increase in wages for them. Again, if there are solutions that would help you meet this goal, then, besides raising wages, we're very open to that. It may be that for the first time, I feel like IBB bargaining is appropriate for a wage proposal. But this is a very serious proposal, even though it seems like a very substantial proposal. In addition to, of course, the increase in wages, we've asked for a couple of additional steps at the higher end. I believe that's years 23 and 26. And we've asked for some modest increases in some of the supplemental pays, et cetera. And I'll be glad to go over the details with you when you've had a chance to study and look at the proposal. But I did want to make this presentation at the outset and let you know where we're coming from and why we feel like this is a very serious and, in fact, a needed proposal.
Well, I think we're gonna have to go through, obviously, your proposal, and, get through our side and, all of those things that, before we go all there, I mean, there are some things obviously the city, wants to say, which is we very much appreciate the work that y'all do. Normally, we appreciate the work y'all do during the pandemic. We appreciate the work y'all do during the ice storm. When you sign up for public safety, it's something that it's not cut out for everybody. I'm not cut out for it. I get the benefit, like a lot of my coworkers do, of not having to go in, during emergencies, things like that. And so I do want to say we very much, not just on behalf of the city, but on behalf of our citizens, I'm sure want to express our gratitude for the work that y'all do. So let us get a chance to go through this. I think, we understand a lot of the comments that in the presentation, because, to be honest, I've talked to Selena before. I know that, and I've read a lot of the stuff she's said, and this has been an issue for not just your association, but, for lots of our workers around the city. And so it is something we're trying to see how we can rectify it as an organization. So we're going to take your consideration seriously and, let us, I know we have a scheduled meeting tomorrow. Obviously, we're not going to get anything back to you on this by then, but can we